Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Innovation Podcast, your source for all things innovation. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres. Keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, today I have Michael McGar on the line. He's president over at Quantum Era. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thanks, Adam.
Hey, so we got a lot to talk about today. So we're going to talk about the launch of your app. But first off, just want to congratulate you. So I see that you were a 2019 MEA Awards finalist. So congrats on that.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. It's an honor to be involved in that and to be honored by them.
So I'll always love to see people getting recognition for their work. And that being said, I think it's a great transition. Let's just dive right into what you're doing over at Quantum Era. Tell us a little bit more about your company, please.
So our company is an immersive development company. We develop immersive applications. Mostly up until this point, we've done a lot of work with historical sites. We did the Alamo back in 2018, which won an MEA award, and several others. And then from that, we decided to build Gettysburg. The difference between those two battles is that the scale was significantly larger in Gettysburg. The battlefield at the Alamo is 6.5 acres. The battlefield at Gettysburg was 50 square miles. So it was a huge, huge undertaking. And the number of people who died in the first hour at Gettysburg was larger than the entire number of participants in the Battle of the Alamo. So gigantic scale. And the Battle of Gettysburg lasted 3 days. We also are working on several different types of training projects as well, where we're taking the same skills in terms of immersive and storytelling and applying that toward training and education. And the app Gettysburg and the app the Alamo are both destined for schools as well. So it's a lot of learning goes on with what we're doing and helping people to learn.
Oh, I love it. I mean, I'm a huge fan of AR, and I just think, like, when you just now said for schools, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go into these kids these days, Michael. These kids these days, and now they got augmented reality. When I was in school, I had a book, and that book was heavy. I mean, they don't even have online.
Oh, yeah. And the interesting thing, my father, who's 88 years old, thinks that the smartphone is the end of civilization as we know it. But
he must be right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he probably won't hear this, but he can't operate even a regular phone. But anyway, the kids these days, now I sound old, all their information comes from that little smartphone they carry around or the smart device that they have in their pocket. And so if you try to deliver information to them in a way that they're not used to receiving that information, then you're kind of barking up the wrong tree. When we first started working on the Gettysburg app, I was talking to the park rangers at Gettysburg, and this superintendent or assistant superintendent said, we know they're using smartphones. We see them inside the building. But what they're doing is they're texting each other and saying this is boring because the experience is not media experience for them. It doesn't reach them. But being able to put that experience onto a smartphone that they can get engaged in it becomes a gateway device to get them interested in what the story is and what it means today. The lessons of Gettysburg are still being fought out today. Gettysburg was the Civil War was a war about the definition of liberty. And that's what we're fighting out today. What is the definition of liberty? Everybody has a different perspective on that. And back in those days, it led to a war. So,
let's go. I think it's a great, speaking of, I think it's also, let's go a little bit further into this app. So Gettysburg, a nation divided, augmented reality app. I mean, tell us a little bit more about the app and what's behind it.
So first of all, there are 21 places of interest that we chose around Gettysburg in order to show the battle and features of the battle. Also, the museum is full of artifacts, but those artifacts are stuck behind glass, do not touch. Mm-hmm. And so I always call museums, particularly military museums, as large guns behind glass exhibits. But when you go to the Gettysburg, it's just this big field. Basically, there's some hills and there's some forest and there's some orchards and rocks, but basically it's just big fields. You look at it, and even the best tour guides are describing what happened, but you have to imagine that. And so when I first went to Gettysburg, I thought people have to be able to see those commanders in the field. They have to see the battle happen. In Pickett's charge, there were 12,000 Confederate soldiers marched across a 1.5 mile long field to get to the other side, and nobody can imagine that. You're standing there looking at it, at that field. You can't imagine what that looked like. So we were able to recreate that so that you could stand where the commander stood, see the commander standing in the field, an AR in front of you, hear a description of who he is, and then you could look around and find an artifact and capture that artifact, and that artifact tells you a bit of the story of that position. And then you could tap to see the experience, and would raise you above the battlefield, and you watch all those soldiers march across that field under cannon fire. The other part that we did too is that when you're standing there at that battlefield and you look around, there's not a lot of identifiable landmarks. And so what we did was we created these 360 flag views where you can spin around in 360, and we put flags and markers around the battlefield to tell you where the landmarks are and where the different commands were. And you can tap on the flags, a Confederate flag or a Union flag, and it will display the commander for that area and describe what happened there with him. And otherwise, you're watching this, if you're in the experience, you're watching the story unfold before you, and it's narrated by Scott Eastwood, who is Clint Eastwood's son. And it's just an incredible experience. You really feel like you've lived that experience. And that's what immersive is about, is that being able to understand something because you feel like you lived it versus just hearing about it or watching a movie. It's a totally different experience.
That's the way you learn about history, right there. Like, that is amazing. I mean, it seems like, it just seems really. I got chills thinking about it, because I'm trying to visualize as you're saying it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, to see that many people on a field, like, just in general, it's crazy. And then for the kids to be able to go in there, I forget the kids, I want to go do this now. Like, I want to go see it. It's awesome.
And so you can also, you don't have to just go to Gettysburg to see it. You can see it anywhere in the world. We have a Gettysburg experience, where a map tracks you where you are and tells you where different locations are. But if you're not there, say you're living in California, you're never going to get to Gettysburg. We have a map that you can tap on the different locations and see the same experiences. So I think that's really, really important to have it to where you can experience anywhere in the world or in your house.
Absolutely. So, Michael, if somebody is listening to this and they want to learn more about not just the app, but they also want to connect and learn more about Quantum Era and the work that you're doing, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to quantumera.com. And if you want to see the app and get the app, you can go to the App Store or Play Store and look for Gettysburg, A Nation Divided. And you can download the app and play right where you are, and you don't have to be anywhere else. One of the things I wanted to also bring up about education is really interesting is that they found that with immersive education, you have a much higher retention rate. With standard classroom education, the retention rate is 10%. With immersive AR, VR, it's 75% retention. That's a huge change in how people can learn and how people can experience any kind of learning, not just history, but any kind of learning.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Well, Michael, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about what you're doing over at Quantum Era, and also, of course, that app, Gettysburg, A Nation Divided Augmented Reality app. Definitely go out there and check that out to the listeners. And congrats again on being a 2019 MEA Award finalist for this work. I mean, all great stuff there. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review on the Apple iTunes Store, and if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Innovation, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Michael, thanks again for coming on the show.